Hey everybody, today I'm here with a friend, okay? Just got him out of a bucket over there that's been preserved. It's a frog, and frog dissection is one of those things in our lives as we grow up going to school. Is kind of a rite of passage in science. It seems like every adult I talk to, if there's one thing they remember about science class, it's just that, dissecting frogs. Now, don't worry, today my intention is not to get into the dissection itself, so there will be no cutting in this video. If you want to see that, you can check out some of the dissection footage that I've gotten from frogs, fetal pigs, or even dogfish sharks, which we've done in years past. Now, actually today I want to talk a little bit more about a question that's at the root of why we do frog dissection. And that has to do with a process called natural selection. Quick rundown on that. Natural selection is basically this process in which we've found that animals evolve different characteristics and traits over time because of the environment they live in. For example, giraffes have long necks and they happen to live in a place where they can reach food on higher trees. Polar bears have white fur and they happen to live in a place where they blend in perfectly for that. Every organism, whether it be camouflage or speed or the ability to adapt to cold or hot temperatures or store water in dry temperatures, has strengthened over time because the traits that are beneficial to an organism living in a place allow it to live long enough to reproduce and then pass on that DNA to their offspring. So eventually you get a whole species living in a place, an environment that may not be suitable to us, but is perfectly suited for an organism. Frogs are a great example of that. We look at frogs because when you dissect them, you can see that the internal structures of the frog are kind of similar to that of a human. We can use it to make anatomical comparisons. What I mean by that is the anatomy, the internal structures of the frog are placed in similar ways and serve similar functions and are organized in just a way that you might find in the human body. But when you look at the exterior of the frog, there are some key differences that I'm going to point out. So the question I'm answering in the video today is, what are the adaptations on the frog on the exterior and some interior adaptations that make it uniquely suited for the environment that it might live in? To think about that, we got to think about, okay, where do frogs live? Frogs live, of course, in aquatic environments, fresh water specifically, so ponds, streams, lakes, those kinds of things. They live in areas where there's going to be a lot of vegetation, a lot of green, murky, muddy water filled with algae and things like that. They're a member of the class Amphibia. That means they're amphibians, okay? One of the unique things that amphibians can do is through their skin, they can breathe. Their skin is so thin and there's not any fat stored in the skin, so materials in the atmosphere and in the water can actually pass straight through the skin into the bloodstream. For example, breathing. We need lungs to breathe, and we take in oxygen through our nose and mouth into the lungs. But frogs, while they do have lungs and can do that and breathe through their nose, can also take it straight through their skin. When you cut open the skin, you'll see there are capillaries in the surface of the skin, blood vessels that flow close enough to the air that allows them to take in oxygen through there. The trick is, though, frogs have to remain wet to do that, so if they dry out, it's no bueno. They have to live in water in order to make this process happen. They can also take in water through their skin. Frogs never open their mouth and go to a source of water to get a drink. They can take it directly through their skin. The water's got to be clean though, okay? If the water's polluted or there are toxins in the water, well then it's taking those toxins directly through the skin, and that's not a good thing. Another thing that we look at a frog is the skin is camouflage. If I'm seeing a frog and I am walking along a pond, I'm seeing its back, which is going to blend in to a background that's filled with algae and mud and sticks and other things that would be dark in color. If the frog is floating on the surface and there's a predator underneath, look what color they see. They're looking up to a background of water that's shimmering because the sunlight is coming through and refracting through the water. So no matter which way you look at the frog, it's uniquely camouflaged so that you can't see it. Now let's talk about the legs. Frogs have huge legs, okay? They're longer than the body itself, okay? This is to help them obviously jump, but it's also to help them propel through the water. Check out their toes. There's webbing here. This just gives the frog more surface area on the foot so it can push against more water molecules with every single stroke in the water, which is going to propel it forward even more. The front legs are short, but they're very kind of firm and stocky. Think of where the frog's going to be landing. It's going to be landing like this, okay? It kind of creates a nice little kind of landing pad for the frog that's built in. Another cool thing is the eyes and the mouth. So if you look at the frog's head really closely there, okay? These eyes kind of bulge out on the surface of their head. They can see all around them, forward, behind them, so there's no need for them to be able to turn their neck back and forth like you or me. They can look forward and backward simultaneously without having to move their head. On the eye itself, there's a third eyelid. In class, we look at that third eyelid and notice that it's transparent. You can still see the eye underneath when that third eyelid is pulled up. Now you and me, we only have one eyelid on top and one eyelid on the bottom. So when we close our eyes, we can't see anything. But imagine having a third eyelid that was like a lens that pulled over the top of your eyeball. What would that be used for? Well, when frogs dive down into the water, they still need to see. Our eyes haven't evolved to be able to see underwater because our species has always lived on land. So when we go underwater and we look, everything kind of looks distorted because the light refracts differently through water. But when we put goggles on, it gives us kind of a filter so that we can see things as they normally would appear underwater. Frogs have that built in. When they go underwater, they naturally and instinctively just engage that third eyelid so that they can see crystal clear underwater. But I think my favorite thing about the eyes is this. Their eyes can be used to assist in digesting food. You heard me correctly in that. To know the kind of full process here is when you open the frog's mouth and you look at it, the first step in digestion would occur in an organism's mouth, right? So when we open the mouth, we'll notice a couple things. First off, we have a ridge of teeth that's right here on the upper and lower jaws of the frog, but they're not really teeth. They're kind of more like a ridge. Almost feels like a hard ridge of plastic or sandpaper. And all that does is when the frog has managed to get prey, like an insect inside the mouth, is it kind of traps it in until the frog is ready to swallow. The tongue in the mouth is unique in that it's attached in the front of the mouth, not the back. If I try to stick my tongue out, I can feel it kind of pulling on the back of my mouth because that's where our tongue muscle is attached. The frog is not attached back there. So we see in class, we can take out the tongue from the front and it kind of comes forward to be able to wrap around and snatch its insect, its prey, and pull it back into the mouth. It just is allowed to extend the tongue a little bit further because it's not restricted by being attached in the back of the mouth. But back to the eyes. Here's what the eyes do. The eyes can actually help push the food down the back of the throat. The eyes can retract back into the head. They bulge outwards, but occasionally, it's kind of stiff right now, but they can use their own eyes to be able to pull down inside the skull. And when they pull their eyes down inside the skull, the socket on the other side actually pushes in the back of the throat because that's what's right underneath here, okay, right? The back of the throat is right in there. That's where the bottom of the eye socket would be, and it can use the back of that to help push the food down. So if you've ever witnessed a frog actually eating an insect, the eyes will be closing and going back in the head, kind of alternating, helping push that insect along down the esophagus and into the stomach. Now when you open the frog and dissect the frog, the coolest thing that you see right off the bat is the liver. The liver is an organ that helps digest and break down the food. The liver, the gallbladder, the pancreas, all of these glands help digest the organism as it moves through the frog. So it can send that energy to the cells that it needs as it breaks the food down. But another thing you see are fatty bodies, okay? They're these kind of yellow, stringy, kind of floppy bodies that are inside the frog itself. And that is just extra energy storage. When we overeat, our body stores fat because it says, I don't need this right now, but I'm going to save it in case there's ever a time where I'm low on energy. I'll start burning fat in order to make energy so the organism can actually survive. It's kind of an efficient way of storing energy in our body. Now we store it in our skin, it packs in our skin. Frogs don't do that because remember, they breathe and drink through their skin. If there was fat in the skin, their skin would be too thick to be able to do that. So frogs adapted the ability to have fatty bodies so they can maintain respiration, that's breathing, and drinking through the skin. So that's pretty cool. So anyway, I hope you never look at a frog the exact same way again. They're really different, they're really unique between the camouflage of the skin, the way the legs are structured and bend and help the frog jump, the way the eyes aid in digestion, the tongue, the mouth, the liver, the fatty bodies. These are all things that the frog has evolved through and gotten better at over time through generations upon generations of reproducing in an environment that is fresh water, murky, all that kind of stuff that I described at the beginning of this video. All right, that's it. Mr. Hames, this has been a fantastic school year with you all. Hope you enjoyed a little background about the common bullfrog. Here you go. See you, everybody.